We're at the end of this exploration of trekking through compliance with episode 79, Turnabout Intruder.
Compliance, the final frontier. Tom Fox is the voyager of trekking through compliance. His mission? To explore the original series and seek out and share what it can teach you about compliance. Here's your host, Tom Fox.
Trekking Through Compliance, Episode 79, Turnabout Intruder. In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we consider the episode Turnabout Intruder, which aired on June 3, 1969, and occurred on Stardate 5298.5. Story synopsis. After receiving a distress call from a science party on Kemu 2, exploring the ruins of a dead civilization, the Enterprise rushes to its assistance. All members of the party appear to be dead except the leader, Dr. Janice Lester, and the medical officer, Dr. Arthur Coleman. Kirk and Lester had been in love at Starfleet Academy, but Lester's inability to rise to command status because of her gender led them to drift apart. According to Dr. Coleman, Lester is suffering from an unknown sort of radiation poisoning. However, when the rest of the Enterprise landing party goes to aid a dying science party member and leaving Kirk and Lester alone, she activates an alien device she has discovered and exchanges bodies with Kirk. Lester is driven by insane jealousy and a persecution complex and complains to Kirk of the agony of being a woman. Now in the body of Kirk, she tries to strangle Lester and kill the real Kirk. Kirk, McCoy, and Coleman, or rather McCoy, Spock, and Coleman return before she can finish, having been too late to save the scientists from celibium poisoning. Lester, as Kirk, orders everyone to be beamed aboard and takes over the role of Kirk. Aboard the Enterprise, in secret consultation with Lester as clerk, Dr. Coleman reveals that Dr. Lester deliberately sent the science team where she knew the celibium shielding was weak and that she was supposed to kill Kirk during the interval provided by Coleman on the planet. Lester as Kirk removes Bones as chief medical officer and installs Dr. Coleman, a former Starship doctor who has been found incompetent by Starfleet Surgeon General, in his place. Dr. Coleman attempts to prevent Kirk and Dr. Lester's body from interacting with the crew by sedating her, but she manages to escape sickbay to talk to Bones and Spock. However, Lester as Kirk is there waiting for a medical examination ordered by McCoy. He proceeds to knock Kirk as Lester out and orders her to be put in isolation and incommunicado. Meanwhile, Lester as Kirk delays a rendezvous with Potemkin to conduct gravitational studies on Beta Arguni binary system and insists that the course be set for the Benicia colony, despite the fact that Starbase 2 is on the way and Benicia possesses only primitive medical facilities. Spock suspects something is amiss and goes to talk to the real Kirk in solitary confinement. At Kirk's request, Spock does a Vulcan mind meld and discovers the truth. Meanwhile, McCoy tests Lester as Kirk's dermopalapic reaction to color wavelengths using a Arabiana dermopalatic test to compare his basic emotional structure with previous tests. Spock tries to escape with the real Kirk, but is stopped by Lester as Kirk and security guards. This leads to a court-martial for Spock. Spock puts Kirk and Lester's body on the stand and testifies that Kirk's mind is actually in her body. Scotty talks to Bones in the hallway about the vote, and the conversation is recorded by Lester as Kirk. Lester as Kirk then orders the death penalty for Scotty, Bones, and Lester, who is actually Kirk, and Spock, despite the fact that General Order 4 is the only crime for which the death penalty is in effect. In the meantime, Sulu and Chekhov refuse to obey Lester as Kirk's orders, and Kirk and Lester experience a temporary reversion of minds. In fact, to prevent reversion, Coleman informs Lester as Kirk that Lester must be killed. However, Coleman is too late in carrying out the task, and Kirk and Lester's mind revert to their appropriate bodies. So what is the fun fact from this episode? Well, it's not very fun to announce that this is the final episode of the original series. Leonard Nimoy as Mr. Spock, Majel Bartlett as Nurse Christine Chapel, and Number One were the only actors to appear in both this episode and the first pilot of The Cage. Leonard Nimoy was the only actor to appear in every episode of the series. William Shatner appeared in every episode except The Cage, where Jeffrey Hunter played Captain Christopher Pike in the first episode. Hunter died a week before Turnabout Intruder was aired. The very last Enterprise crew member to be seen in the original series is Scotty, as he, Kirk, and Spock enter the turbo elevator at the end of Act 4. A glimpse of his forearm grasping the control is visible before the doors close. This episode had some interesting continuity issues. First of all, is the name of the planet, Benicia, is different than it was used in The Conscience of the King, Benicia. Also, Kirk mentions two previous episodes, the Empath and the Tholian Web. Interestingly, Starfleet General Orders appear to have changed by the time this episode occurs, as Sulu and Chekhov say that only violating General Order 4 warrants the death penalty, yet in the Menagerie it was stated that the violation of General Order 7, which was the ban on contact with Talos 4, was the only death penalty left on the books. And one of the interesting parts or contradictions in this episode was that Janice Lester stated, "Your world of starship captains does not admit women." Indeed, in fact, the entire basis of the episode is that Janice Lester wanted to be a starship captain, but could not because of her gender, and that's what led her to switch bodies with Kirk and try to murder him. However, that was contradicted, obviously, by Star Trek Discovery, but also in Star Trek Enterprise. In that episode, Home, set in 2154, the second Warp 5 captain to be launched, second Warp 5 ship, was captained by a woman, Captain Hernandez. However, this is not necessarily a contradiction, because Lester's line, "Your world of starship captains does not admit women," might not have been intended to mean Starfleet, but rather admit that Kirk's world as a starship captain did not and could not include her, since they were talking about relationships. So I thought that was a really interesting twist on this episode. For this final episode, I want to take up some leadership lessons, but from the compliance perspective. So these are really compliance leadership lessons from Turnabout Intruder. The episode itself explores the complexity of power control in the human condition and offers valuable insights for compliance leaders navigating the challenges of ethical leadership and fostering a positive organizational culture. Obviously, this is a fictional episode, but it highlights the importance of empathy, accountability, and ethical decision-making in leadership. The compliance leadership lessons are several, including empathy and understanding. Compliance leaders must demonstrate empathy and understanding towards their team members, recognizing that individuals have different motivations, perspectives, and experiences. This involves actively listening to concerns, fostering open communication, and creating a culture of respect and trust. Next, accountability and transparency. Compliance leaders must hold themselves and their teams accountable for their actions, ensuring transparency and ethical decision-making. This involves establishing clear ethical guidelines, promoting open communication, and fostering a culture of accountability. Ethical decision-making. Compliance leaders must prioritize ethical decision-making in all aspects of their work, considering the impact of their actions on individuals, the organization, and society as a whole. This involves fostering a culture of ethical awareness, providing training on ethical principles, and promoting a commitment to integrity. Building trust and respect. Compliance leaders must build trust and respect within their teams, creating a positive and supportive environment. This involves demonstrating integrity, fairness, and empathy while fostering a culture where individuals feel valued and respected. Additionally, what about the dangers of unchecked power? This episode highlights the dangers of unchecked power and the potential for individuals to abuse their authority. Compliance leaders must be vigilant in preventing such situations, ensuring that power is used responsibly and ethically. The importance of humility. The episode underscores the importance of humility in leadership and recognizing that no one is above the law or beyond accountability. Compliance leaders must be willing to acknowledge their limitations and seek guidance and support when needed. The value of collaboration. This episode demonstrates the importance of collaboration and teamwork in addressing complex challenges. Compliance leaders must foster a culture of collaboration, encouraging open communication and shared decision-making. By embracing these lessons, compliance leaders can create a more ethical, responsible, and effective organization, fostering a culture of integrity and accountability. I hope you've enjoyed this series as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. I'm going to have some more, I've had so much fun, I'm going to have some more podcasts on this. We're going to take a look at all of the original TOS cast and crew movies going forward. Jay Rosen and I are going to do that. We're going to cross-post it on Popcorn and Compliance. Next week, I'm going to have a special series with Ben Lockwood where we're going to look at some of the science in Star Trek to see how viable or visible it may be today and where it may be going in the future. I'm also going to have some final reflections on my journey through the original series that I hope not only you'll join me for, but you will enjoy. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you will continue to trek out. This is Tom Fox. Trekking Through Compliance was a special presentation of the Compliance Podcast Network.
If you enjoyed this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, you can help it grow by sharing it with the biggest Trek fan you know.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.